The Tomahawk isn't the fastest missile in America's arsenal. It isn't the newest either. But ask anyone who watched it carve through Baghdad in 1991 or open the first strikes in Syria, and they'll tell you the same thing. None of that matters when you're on the receiving end. It launches from a destroyer or a submarine, flies more than 1,000 miles, skims the terrain, changes course mid-flight, and hits with terrifying accuracy. So what makes it so lethal and so precise? Subscribe now and let's get started. At first glance, the Tomahawk shouldn't still be scaring people nearly 50 years after its first test flights. It's subsonic, slower than the speed of sound. In a world obsessed with hypersonic weapons, that sounds almost quaint. But that's exactly where most people get it wrong. The Tomahawk was never built to win through speed. It was built to win through intelligence, through reach, through flexibility, and through the ability to arrive exactly where it's needed, with almost no warning. The story starts in the 1970s. The Navy wanted a long-range cruise missile that could launch from ships and submarines and still penetrate deep into defended territory. That sounds straightforward now, but at the time, it was an enormous technical challenge. Submarines launching cruise missiles had to surface first, exposing themselves, then prep the weapon. That meant time, risk, and vulnerability. The Tomahawk was designed to eliminate all of that. Launch underwater, survive the transition to air, and travel hundreds, eventually more than 1,000 miles to a target on land. That requirement shaped everything. A rocket engine couldn't deliver the range the Navy needed, so the Tomahawk uses a small turbofan jet for cruise flight, the same basic principle that powers a commercial airliner. But a jet engine alone can't push a missile out of a submarine. So there are two stages. A solid fuel booster fires first, getting the missile out of the launcher and into the air. Then the booster drops away, the air intake opens, the wings and fins deploy, and the turbofan takes over for the long run to the target. Hard, fast launch, then efficient, far-reaching cruise. That combination is one of the first things that makes this weapon so effective. Physically, it's compact but devastating. Around 20 feet long, a wingspan just under 9 feet, weighing roughly 3,000 pounds. And it flies at about 550 miles per hour, the cruising speed of a commercial jet. That might not sound dramatic until you realize it's doing that for up to 1,500 miles, carrying a warhead toward a target that has no idea it's coming. And that range is the first dimension of its power. And because power isn't just the size of the warhead, it's also how far away you can stand and still hit something important. A Tomahawk lets a warship sitting well offshore reach command centers, air defense networks, bunkers, radar installations, fuel depots, and critical infrastructure deep inland. It changes the geometry of a conflict entirely. Suddenly, being far from the coast isn't protection anymore. If the missile can reach you, the ocean might as well be next door. The warhead itself is serious, around 1,000 pounds on most conventional versions, built to smash hardened targets and key facilities. Earlier variants included nuclear-tipped versions, now retired. Modern development has moved toward multi-effect warheads capable of dealing with a wider range of targets, including deeply buried structures. So when people ask why the Tomahawk is powerful, the real answer isn't just that it explodes. It delivers a serious warhead at long range against defended targets with very high confidence it'll actually get there. But raw power is only half the story. The real magic is precision, and this is where the Tomahawk becomes something much more than a flying bomb. Simple, inertial navigation can point a missile in roughly the right direction, but errors accumulate over distance. Over 1,000 miles, a small drift becomes a massive miss. That's unacceptable when your target is a specific bunker, radar array, or command post. So the Tomahawk layers its guidance systems, each one correcting for the weaknesses of the others. Start with inertial navigation for basic direction and motion. Then add TERCOM, terrain contour matching. This system stores maps of elevation data and compares them in real time to what the missile's radar altimeter sees below. If the ground matches the map, the missile knows exactly where it is. If it starts to drift, it corrects. That was a genuine breakthrough, flying low, following the terrain, staying on course without depending on any outside signal. Then there's DSMAC, Digital Scene Matching Area Correlator. This is where it gets almost unsettling. Instead of just comparing terrain height, the missile compares the actual visual scene around the target to stored reference images. It looks at the ground and essentially says, yes, that's the place. Early inertial guidance alone could leave you tens of meters off course over long range. DSMAC combined with GPS brought that down to meters. GPS made it even better, faster mission planning, easier updates, more flexibility in the attack profile. Jam-resistant GPS improved survivability against modern electronic warfare. And by layering GPS on top of TERCOM and DSMAC, the missile doesn't go blind if one system degrades. That redundancy is exactly why it stays accurate when things get complicated. Then there's how it flies. The Tomahawk doesn't come screaming in at altitude where every radar can track it. It hugs the ground, often 100 to 300 feet up, sometimes lower. Using hills, valleys, and the curvature of the landscape as cover, radar struggles to see something that low, especially when terrain keeps breaking the line of sight. Its slim fuselage gives it a small radar cross-section. It's not invisible, but it's difficult to detect, difficult to track, and very difficult to engage in time. That low flight path also makes it tactically flexible in ways faster missiles simply aren't. Because it's subsonic and winged, it's fuel efficient and maneuverable. It can take non-linear routes, bend around defended areas, and approach from unexpected directions. That flexibility proved decisive in Desert Storm, where Tomahawks were routed through mountain valleys to defeat Iraqi air defenses and maximize surprise. They were among the very first weapons fired in the Gulf War, knocking out key targets and air defense nodes before a single manned aircraft entered the most dangerous airspace. That's when the world understood what this weapon could do. Now, that first strike role became defining. In Bosnia, Tomahawks struck Bosnian Serb military infrastructure when putting pilots at risk wasn't acceptable. In Afghanistan, they opened the campaign against al-Qaeda and Taliban targets in the first hours of the war. In Libya, they were used to shatter Gaddafi's air defenses in the opening salvo of Operation Odyssey Dawn. In Syria, they struck chemical weapons facilities and airfields tied to the Assad regime's worst atrocities. In Yemen, they've been used against militant targets and weapons caches deep in the interior. The pattern repeats everywhere. When commanders want to hit the most dangerous targets without putting pilots over the heaviest defenses, the Tomahawk is near the top of the list. More than 2,000 have been fired in combat. This isn't a promising weapon on paper. It's a weapon with a long, documented track record across decades and continents, and newer versions aren't locked into a single plan after launch. The Block 4 Tactical Tomahawk introduced two-way satellite communication, and that changed everything. Now, the missile can be redirected in flight, retasked to alternate targets, and can actually loiter over an area, waiting for the right moment or a final go-ahead. It can relay back status data and, in some configurations, imagery for battle damage assessment. That's not fire and forget in the old sense. That's a connected weapon that remains part of the fight after it's already in the air. Think about how dangerous that makes it. A ship can launch before a target window fully opens. The missile flies toward the area, waits, and gets updated when the situation crystallizes. A commander can redirect the strike, abort it, or shift to a higher priority target. The Tomahawk isn't just a pre-programmed delivery system. It's a responsive node in a larger combat network. Block 5 modernizes navigation and communications, extending service life. Block 5A brings back maritime strike capability, meaning the missile can now hunt moving ships at sea. Block VB adds a multi-effect warhead for harder land targets. That evolution is exactly why the Tomahawk is still relevant. It didn't stay dangerous by standing still, it stayed dangerous because it kept getting better. New guidance, new seekers, anti-jam upgrades, new mission profiles. The airframe proved so capable that instead of replacing it, the military kept reinventing it. And there's one more reason it matters, it's practical. For a weapon with this reach and these capabilities, it's long been considered cost-effective. Older versions ran roughly $1.3 to $1.8 million. Newer variants cost more. Oh, but in military terms, that's a price planners will accept for a weapon that can strike a high-value target from standoff range with no pilot at risk. It can be recertified, upgraded, and kept in inventory rather than discarded. That makes it viable at scale, not just in theory. So why is the Tomahawk still one of the most feared cruise missiles in the world? Because it fuses range, stealthy, low-altitude flight, a serious warhead, layered guidance, flexible launch options, and continuous modernization into a single weapon. It leaves a submarine, flies low across 1,000 miles of hostile terrain, avoids defenses, adjusts in flight, waits if it needs to, and then hits the right building, not the neighborhood. That's not just engineering. That's battlefield leverage. The Tomahawk was never the fastest missile in the sky, but that was never the point. Its real power is that it makes distance feel irrelevant and protection feel uncertain, and it's been doing that from the deserts of Iraq to the skies over Libya and Syria for 50 years. If you enjoyed this breakdown, subscribe and let me know what weapon or system you want to see next. Thanks for watching.